Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. Today, I'm going to be talking about cancel culture and Deborah Birx's remarks, basically stating that Trump was being fed alternate information, and that's what he was providing to the public. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the show if you haven't already, and please go to notcensoredyet.com/donate. You'll find links available where you can contribute to the show. So let's get started. So this is a tweet from Thomas Chatterton Williams, basically saying, "What can you even say anymore? We wrote a letter about this back in July, so that hopefully this wouldn't happen to you." So Lauren Wolf is the lady who was fired for basically saying she had shivers when she saw Joe Biden get off the plane, or maybe she was shuddering or shivering. It's hilarious, this refrain of cancel culture, as if it is actually anything. Virus, jobs, nah. This is from August 24th, 2020. So he gives a little tweet history. And then March 2020 from Will Wilkinson, cancel culture, LOL. Helen Joyce, this was from January 23rd, 21. I'd highly recommend signing up. Will was sacked by the Wisconsin Center, who clearly don't know better than to give in to bullies for making a quite funny and obviously non-literal joke. Their loss, the world's gain. It's going to be one of the most interesting reads around. And then Will Wilkinson said, "Hi, everybody. What is it that we say? Personal news? I have personal news." And then he talks about his Substack. So I believe the person that they were talking about was the individual that said that somebody should do something to Mike Pence. I don't want to say it because I don't want to get in trouble. And then this is Lauren Wolf on yesterday, January 24th. I feel extremely weird sharing this, but somehow you are incredible people and keep asking for a way to help. Thank you. And she retweeted something from someone named Josh. A lot of people want to pitch in financially to support Lauren and Moose right now. I'm assuming Moose is her dog. I'm sharing her Venmo here for those who are eager to help. So she went from saying, cancel culture is not really a thing, to, oh my goodness, thank you for the help. Now that I've been canceled, because obviously it is a thing. And the thing that bothers me is a lot of the Democrats were the big my private business, right? My free speech, my whatever, until it bites them in the face. All it takes is for you to condone that action for your enemy, and eventually you'll find yourself becoming that enemy because you'll no longer be that useful idiot. If your job is to be an activist and rile up the base to get them to vote for the opposition party candidate, guess what? As a journalist, you are able to do that for either party, whether you ideologically agree with them or not. So, most political leaders realize that. So, now that the useful idiots have been used up, it is now time to spit them out. So, here's a tweet thread from Catherine Cross, which was basically another person talking about the thing with Lauren Wolf. And to clarify what I mean here, left-wing harassment campaigns generally stem from an honestly stated principle, rightly or wrongly applied, sometimes slathered in irony. Reactionary campaigns are less about principle than power, however. Some right-wingers, again, speaking in bad faith, will say something to the effect of live by the sword, die by the sword, arguing that liberals and lefties are just getting a taste of their own medicine. But the issue is that one side is sincere and the other simply is not. And I don't buy that, because if you're going back 10 years through someone's tweet history, something socially... So the issue I have is there was things that were socially acceptable to say 10 years ago that are not culturally acceptable to say today due to wokeism. And so people avoid saying those things today, but social justice warriors will dig up old tweets, your old whatever Facebook post from 10 years ago, and then use that to beat you over the head. And that is not being sincere. If I have to go back 10 years in your past to find an inappropriate joke that you made, especially if you're a comedian, you are not being sincere. Because if you're offended by something I said 10 years ago, you weren't offended 10 years ago. Your current self is applying your moral standards that you've adopted today and has transposed that onto what I said 10 years ago when that was culturally accepted, when I made money making that joke because that was considered funny in the popular culture. A lot of MAGA and 4chan style trolls have something in common: the deeply held belief that everyone is as cruel and self seeking as they are. See, so she's saying that MAGA people are just cruel and self-seeking. In this worldview, leftist and liberal principles are mere hypocrisy, used by elites to judge and punish ordinary people. Thus, antagonizing someone like Lauren Wolf is about weaponizing those principles against what they perceive to be a liberal institution to point out the hypocrisy of the high and mighty and prove that they're really as awful as everyone else. And that's the hack. The institution in question gets trapped in a kind of tunnel vision, desperate to prove that its principles are absolute. Meanwhile, the harassers don't give a damn about a press that reports without fear or favor. They just want blood. So, but she obviously does report with favor. She's not doing her job as a journalist if she says, "Oh my goodness, when I see a Democratic candidate, when I see the new Democratic president, it sends shivers down my spine and make the Trump makes my skin crawl," right? Because Orange Man is bad, MAGA is bad, but liberalism is good, blah blah blah. So she's definitely partisan. And if the newspaper wants to be, if the news organization wants to be taken seriously, they can't have such an obvious partisan pretending to be nonpartisan. And to be blunt, in the case of the New York Times, when you add institutional sexism and racism into the mix, the overreaction is even harsher. Are you kidding me, friends? What does that even have to do with anything? And from the look of it, I don't understand how Lauren Wolf would be a victim of institutional racism. She is whiter than I am, friends. And institutional sexism, I don't know if that's a contributing factor here. A male reporter was fired for making a very bad, distasteful comment about the former vice president. So, again, you really can't say it's a sexist thing because it seems to be equally applied. The Times continues to employ men credibly accused of sexual harassment, and male journos have written offensive and biased tweets, after all. Thus, for the harassers in this campaign, they are not out to enforce rigid adherence to a principle, but out to use that principle as a loophole to assert their own power. A loophole that allows them to avoid saying what they mean, making their hate appear more respectable. So, again, that's disingenuous because I'll use my example. So today, if you want to use cancel, if you want to say all cancel culture is bad, I agree with you 100%. But if you want to compare apples to apples, I'd much rather be canceled for something I say today than something I had said 10 years ago, because I can't argue against something I said 10 years ago. I can't even clarify it because socially it's so much, culturally it's so much different when I had said it 10 years ago. If you repeat something said 10 years ago, and 10 years ago when I was deployed, if I would have said something bad, I would have to go, well, in the context I was in Afghanistan. So it's not apples to apples. And today, if I say something inappropriate, sexist, racist, what have you, well, there's really no excuse because I know what the culture is like today. Same thing. So if I say something today and it offends somebody 10 years from now, well, I apologize. But as of today, what I am saying is culturally acceptable. And if you have an issue with it 10 years from now, well, you can go suck on a lemon. I really don't care. This is what I mean about the sincerity gap. Even the more repugnant left-wing harassment campaigns are carried out in the same name of broad principle, opposing classism say. This is different despite superficial similarities. And then the top comment is, it's different when we do it. So that's basically the point. She's like, oh, well, we're so much more dignified. We're not doing it out of malice and hate, And it's just so, it's ridiculous. And taking that holier than thou approach, um, it's just not proving the case, because you're saying that they're doing it out of hate, we're doing it out of love. But a lot of the cancel culture things that I'm witnessing are, when it comes from the left, it's something that somebody has done in the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years. When cancel culture is done on people on the right, on the from the right to the left, it's usually a current events issue, as in you are making a veiled threat against a sitting vice president. You are making inappropriate partisan comments towards the incoming president while pretending to be a nonpartisan journalist. So, ag- the difference is still going to be the then versus now. And I always feel like if you're measuring somebody through what they're doing today, that is far more authentic than judging somebody for what they had done. Basically, transposing your moral values from today, 10 years ago, and then judging them as if they had said it today. I feel that's just disingenuous. So, on to Dr. Birx. Was reported from thehill.com. Birx, someone was delivering a parallel set of data on coronavirus to Trump. This was released January 24th, 2021. Deborah Birx, the former White House coronavirus response coordinator, said Sunday that her efforts to advise then President Trump about the pandemic were complicated by people presenting him with parallel sets of data, which is the first time I heard about it. She was around for the entire year that this was going on, and this is the first time she's speaking up about it. Ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like she's getting ready to release a book. I saw the president was presenting graphs that I had never made, so I know that someone, or someone out there, or someone inside was creating a parallel set of data and graphics that were shown to the president. I know what I set up, and I know that what was in his hands was different than that. You can't do that. Asked by host Margaret Brennan, who provided the former president with such data, Birx said she was unsure, but that she suspected at least some of the data had been provided by former White House advisor Scott Atlas, who was not an expert on infectious diseases and repeatedly battled with Birx and other experts about the best way to contain the pandemic. I don't know who else was part of it, but I think when the record goes back and see what I was writing on a daily basis that was sent up to the White House leadership, they will see I was highly specific on what I was seeing and what needed to be done. Asked by Brennan whether the White House chief of staff or any other officials were saying, wait a second, this is our official coordinator, listen to her and her only, Birx said she was unaware whether anyone told Trump that, but that no one said that to me. Brennan went on to ask whether Birx believed what Trump was distracted by the political implications of the virus and his reelection campaign. Of course he was. Now, I don't even understand why that needs to be a question. And she answers it quite well. But of course, you don't want something crazy happening during the election. And in 2020, that was the longest decade that happened in the course of a year. I always wonder that. I mean, the worst possible time you can have a pandemic is in a presidential election year. I mean, I think the worst time you can have a pandemic is when you're having a pandemic, to be honest. I think the White House personnel were very focused on this pandemic in March and April, she said. I think once the country began to open, it was clear to me that they weren't going to follow my really gated criteria that I had worked really hard on. So, my question to Deborah Birx is, if she believed there was alternate sources of data, why didn't she whistleblow and go to a reporter? Why didn't she give an interview to The Hill beforehand? I know she didn't talk to The Hill. She talked to CNN, I believe, or CBS's Face the Nation. But how come she didn't speak up before? Why is she only speaking up now? Was she concerned about her job security? It's not easy it's not easy to fire these high level bureaucrats. And to have fired her in the middle of the pandemic, Trump could have possibly faced an impeachment, which would have been ammunition for the Democrats in Congress. But he didn't. He didn't even fire Fauci when Fauci had admittedly lied to the American public about what to wear, what sort of PPE was appropriate due to the virus. So I find the timing to be convenient. I'm going to keep my ear to the ground. I'm going to see if she's signing any book deals, because that's what I'm assuming that's happening. Now that all this is done, you see political art with Fauci now being unchained, which I find horribly offensive and racist because, from my understanding, that it's just using that sort of imagery in the pop culture right now, or just in general, it's not really looked well upon because it seems to be some sort of cultural appropriation. And it's weird, the idealization of the Dr. Fauci, because he has done so many things wrong, and the mainstream media kept pushing this narrative stating that Trump had no plan. But he did have a plan, ladies and gentlemen. Fauci had to correct the media, basically saying we had a plan, and now we're just basically perfecting that plan. We're building off the plan that we had because we're already rolling out 1 million vaccines a day. So there you have it, folks. I'm going to keep doing some research. I'm going to release another video today. I'll see you all later. Have a good one. Bye.